Hey folks, I'm Alex Dowd.
And I'm Katie Rife.
Today on the show, we're offering a guide to the major streaming services. That's Netflix, Amazon Prime, and all the others. If you're a movie lover, which one is right for you? We'll get into that and more.
Welcome to Film Club.
So I feel like we kind of reiterate this at the top of every show. Maybe that's good for posterity's sake. But, we're recording this from our homes. Mm-hmm. Everyone is still social distancing at this point. We're still in the middle of the COVID epidemic. And everyone is kind of watching movies from home right now.
Oh, yeah. Here in Illinois, where we are, they've extended the stay-at-home order through May 30th. And although some states have allowed movie theaters to open with restrictions, a lot of movie theaters don't really have anything to open with, or they don't feel prepared, so they aren't opening. For example, Texas said it would allow movie theaters to open at 25% capacity starting, I believe, next week. But the Alamo Drafthouse chain, big, prominent, outspoken chain, they said they won't be reopening because they don't have the procedures in place yet, and they feel it would be reckless to open. So, hypothetically, the option to go to the movies will be there in some places soon. But I think most people just aren't comfortable going to the movies just yet.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of theaters are not actually going to be open.
No.
I mean, you also have to, beyond the fact that it's a major health risk still at this point, probably, you also have to weigh the fact that, the cost of running a theater and keeping a theater open, is that going to be outweighed by the amount of money they're bringing in? I kind of doubt it, but who knows? I'm not in that business.
Yeah, at 25% capacity, especially if people are hesitant to buy concessions, which I might be right now. There's a big open bucket of popcorn is a little, And that's, I know that's how they get a lot of their revenue. Like I said, I'm not in the business either, but it doesn't seem like the smartest choice, to be honest.
Well, the point ultimately, though, is that for the most part, people are not going to movies right now. They're not going to the movie theater. They're watching everything at home. So we talked recently about our nostalgia for the movie theater experience and for about movie theaters. Today, we're going to do something a little different, and we're going to talk about your options in terms of streaming services.
Yeah, and this is something of a companion to our episode on movie theaters, which we did 2 weeks back.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of services out there. There's a lot of things available for you to spend your money on during this time, and I think up front we should say that every platform out there is a little bit of a grab bag. Mm-hmm. What we should say up front is that we're going to be looking at the various streaming platforms, and we're going to be talking about which ones might be a good fit for you. We're going to talk a little bit about what they offer in terms of selection and cost as well. I think it's important to establish up front, though, that we are mainly talking about this through the lens of how these platforms serve movie lovers.
Right. For TV, pretty much every one of these platforms, as you mentioned before we started recording, Alex, pretty much every one of these platforms has original series programming. And for TV, it's a completely different landscape, a very overwhelming landscape, as our TV editor, Danette Chavez, has told me before, that there's just a lot of television being produced right now.
That's right. Yeah, and obviously some of it you can get on Netflix, some of it you can get on Hulu. That's a whole other discussion, and one that we're not going to be having today. We are mainly talking about these platforms as far as how well they serve movie lovers, and what particular areas of interest, what particular genres, what exactly you might be looking for out of a movie streaming site. We're going to try to address that.
And it evolves over the years too. Like when Netflix first started, I know I was a DVD by mail customer. They were basically an online video store then, and now they're trying to be a network in their own right.
Exactly. And I think we should also emphasize that the thing about the streaming services, there's two things about them. One of them is that all of them are to some extent kind of a grab bag, because the reality is that these various services are all scrambling for content, and they're all scrambling for movies. So it comes down to a matter of rights a lot of the time. Like, what can this particular service secure the rights to?
Yeah, and that can vary by country too. The titles that we're mentioning, we should mention these are all for U.S. A lot of times UK and Canada will be different. So, your mileage may vary depending on where you are.
Correct. And the other thing is that it's all very temporary, because titles come and go from streaming services all the time. Basically, what's available right now on Netflix is not what's going to be available next month on Netflix.
Right, yeah.
There's a whole industry now. There's like a whole industry in our field of just offering a guide of what's coming and going from these various services every month.
Yeah,
these
we
kind
cover
of service
all the major
guides.
ones. Yep.
Right, exactly. So we're just going to go through each one, and we're going to talk a little bit about what they offer and how whether or not these are right for you as a movie lover.
Yeah, or perhaps which movie lovers they're right for. Because I think a lot of them have benefits, but for different types of audiences. And you can split hairs with some of them. Like, for example, we'll get into it, but the difference between Criterion and Mubi, it's two specific kinds of cinephiles.
For sure. Yeah. Well, let's start with Netflix. Netflix is kind of considered the industry leader at this point of streaming services.
In the COVID age, it actually bypassed Disney. It's actually worth more than Disney right now because so many people are watching Netflix.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It is sort of the closest to a household name among the various services. The one that almost everyone has, or at least is borrowing from their mother or their neighbor or something.
There's a feature on some of these streaming services. If you're not sure who's using your password, you can check and see which devices are registered. And if you're feeling especially spiteful, you could maybe take your ex off. Because a lot of people are using their ex's passwords. I used my ex-husband Netflix password for like 2-3 years.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Netflix has a kind of sliding scale of pricing. Its cost is $9 to $16 per month. Basically, what you're paying for with more premium plans is your ability to download certain things. You can actually download the movies or TV shows directly onto your device, which is good for, say, being on an airplane or something, or going somewhere where there's no internet. But it's 9 to 16 is their cost range, which the 16 is one of the higher ones in terms of the streaming services, but you can go as low as 9.
Oh, I was gonna say rent disc by mail is still an option. You can still do that. Right,
and that is a bonus, certainly, because not everything is available streaming, and not everything. So there are some things that are not available anywhere streaming. Now, the library that Netflix has for both streaming and for disc has shrunk over the years.
A lot. It's shrunk a lot, even since I started doing streaming guides, which would have been 5-6 years ago. Even in the time since then, just basically, we'll also talk about Amazon in a minute, but Netflix used to be like Amazon Prime is now, where they would buy up big back catalogs of different sometimes low budget movie distributors. For a while, tons of 70s exploitation movies were on Netflix. You just had to dig for them. But now they're really concentrating on original programming, and as such, their archival catalog has shrunk significantly.
Big time. I mean, honestly, if you're looking for a huge catalog of classic movies, you're not going to find it on Netflix.
No, not at all. Not even a huge catalog of newer movies, really.
Right, exactly. Like Netflix has, and I think in some respects they've kind of ceded that to other platforms. They've said that's not what people come to us for necessarily. I assume they have the metrics to support that notion.
Their ambition is very much to be vertically integrated in the sense that they produce the content that is on the platform. They want to be a major network like HBO.
Absolutely, 100%. Also a major movie studio, to be honest.
Yeah, that too, yeah.
Because, I mean, that's sort of what Netflix has going for it. I think its sort of main draw at this point for a movie lover is that in terms of original content and original movies, Netflix is producing, I think, some of the most prestigious and some of the most expensive original films. I mean, last year, for example, they had both The Irishman and Marriage Story, two of our favorite movies of the year. In fact, my two favorite movies of last year. Netflix is now also, they're kind of filling the void. They're sort of filling the void of mid-budget projects that Hollywood studios used to invest in.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something I've noticed a lot at festivals. The kind of stuff that the Netflix originals that end up playing at festivals, a lot of them are very much of the mid-budget studio movie that was more of a thing in the 70s.
For sure.
Far more than it is today, yeah. Netflix has filled that void.
And not all of them, honestly, not all of them, Netflix isn't producing all of them. Some of them they just buy. Like Roma, for example, was not made with Netflix money. It was just purchased by Netflix. But the fact of the matter remains that Netflix has made a name for itself releasing and in some cases producing original films by major filmmakers. The Coen brothers film recently is another one, the Ballad of Buster Scruggs. That's another one that came through Netflix. They are building a library of original content, of prestigious original content.
Well, not all of it is prestigious.
It's true.
Also, to be fair, like they spent, $150 million on Six Underground, the Michael Bay movie?
Right. Yeah, they don't just want to be known for sort of awards fair. They really want the full spectrum. I mean, so you'll get something like Bright as well, the Will Smith vehicle. They really would love to dominate the market, the entire market if they could. Some of the other things that you can some of the other originals you can get through Netflix are they've built quite a library of romantic comedies. They sort of have this. There's this new wave of original romantic comedies that they've become known for.
Yes, particularly sort of teen-oriented ones, like To All the Boys I Loved Before kind of spawned a little cottage industry for Netflix of that type of similar teen rom-coms.
Totally.
Some of them are good.
Yeah. Some of them are very well received. I mean, there's one opening this week called The Half of It. That is, if that's your lane, Netflix is a strong contender in that respect. They also have they're kind of competing with Hallmark and Lifetime in terms of producing annual holiday fare. They've been making more of those. These kind of inexpensively made like Christmas films, largely. They're building a library of documentaries as well, original documentaries. They buy a lot of indies off the festival circuit. Sometimes they bury them. Yeah,
that's one of my main complaints with Netflix is they'll pick up some good indie stuff like Atlantics, for example, the Maddie Diop movie. They picked that up, but you had to search for it. It didn't show up on your browsing at all. It didn't show up in the new to you. And then another film that I liked last year, The Body Remembers When the World Broke Open, and Jezebel. They have a deal, I think, with Ava DuVernay's distribution company where all of their films end up on Netflix, but they barely promote it at all. A lot of film critics don't know this stuff is on Netflix.
Right, for sure. Yeah, I don't always know. It's kind of my job to know,
Well, and it's their job to tell us, right? But they don't promote a lot of these movies even on the basic level of emailing film critics about it, it's very puzzling to me. I don't understand the strategy.
I think a big part about it is promoting. I mean, when they buy an indie off the festival circuit, for them, I'm guessing they don't spend a ton of money on that. And to them, they don't see that as something that's a huge draw. So they're kind of putting their weight behind things that are going to get them new subscribers, get them new more people buying Netflix and becoming a member, basically.
But why buy them then? That's what I don't understand.
Well, I mean, a cynical person might say that it's similar to the way the Weinsteins operated in the 90s, which is that the Weinsteins would sometimes buy films and then shelve them for years simply so that other sites or their other distributors couldn't get their hands on it. Now, I don't know if that's the key to Netflix strategy here. I have no idea, but I think for them, Netflix has taken a kind of approach of buy, and I don't think
they're very voracious.
Yeah. I don't think the algorithm always helps out all these films.
Yeah. In terms of usability, Netflix's layout on my two test subjects are Roku and Apple TV, and on both of those, the layout is very attractive and it loads quickly and everything, moves really quickly, but finding a specific thing can be difficult if it's not one of the 20 things that Netflix shows you as soon as you open the app.
Right. And something else I've noticed is that if you search for something, they will often find a way to recommend a Netflix original that has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, they will. They'll put it in front of the one you're looking for.
It's very funny. But I mean, if you're looking for a streaming platform, I think the bottom line is that if you're looking for a streaming platform that is going to offer you constant new movies and constant original content, Netflix is one of the most robust in that respect.
If you like docuseries as well, which I do, Netflix produces a lot of pretty good docuseries, so it's worth it for that. And if you like reality television, there's a ton of that on Netflix too. They're doing in-house reality TV right now to a good amount of success, it seems like. The Circle was a big deal.
Yep. I mean, as I said, Netflix kind of, as with a lot of the other streaming services, kind of gets what it can, but in terms of stuff that's going to be new on Netflix in May, I mean, there are a few originals, like the half of it, which we mentioned. There's also a David Spade, Happy Madison movie called The Wrong Missy.
They're still burning through that deal.
But in terms of older films, the first two Back to the Future films are coming to Netflix in May. The first Ace Ventura, Sam Mendes' Jarhead, Sinister, the horror film, Mel Gibson's The Patriot, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, several entries in the Underworld series. That's really just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what they're getting, but as you can see, it's slanted more towards newer films.
Yeah, I think that list actually, as random as it is kind of representative of what is on Netflix.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's move on to Amazon Prime. That's one of Netflix's big competitors.
Yeah, they're interesting to put side by side. You mentioned Netflix having the prestigious films, like The Irishman and Marriage Story last year. Amazon Prime was the first streaming service to win an Oscar, I believe, for Manchester by the Sea.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah, so they beat Netflix there, and that perhaps that's what got the fire under Netflix's ass to start getting some, big name filmmakers on their original roster.
Maybe, because I actually think they did have a couple good years there. A few years ago, actually, where they really were throwing their money behind some very good filmmakers and some very interesting projects.
Oh, definitely. Like The Handmaiden, one of my favorite films from the last decade, was an Amazon original. The Suspiria remake, you know what kind of movies I like. That's Netflix original too. So a few years back, when streaming services like Amazon and Netflix first started actively acquiring films' original content, Amazon took a more traditional approach of putting films in festivals and rolling them out theatrically and then putting them on Prime later. Whereas when Netflix first started doing originals, they were intent on day and date, which meant that it played in theaters and on Netflix on the same day. And day and date doesn't really seem to be working out. So last year we saw, and it did end up, perhaps they had more Oscar success because of it. They gave The Irishman a theatrical rollout before it was on Netflix, which is more traditional.
Well, I mean, in order to even be nominated for an Oscar, you can't go first to a streaming service. You have to go to theaters first.
Could you day and date, like on the same day?
That's a good question.
I know theater owners hate that because there's no reason to go to the theater for a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. I don't have the answer to that. That's interesting, though. But I think you're right that it doesn't end up actually much paying off for the theatrical bow.
Yeah.
I think that Netflix has kind of successfully, they've just kind of decided that there are certain movies that these are our blue chip titles that we're going to give a theatrical birth to, and then these are the ones that, like, who are we kidding? This can just go straight to Netflix,
Yeah, and that's nothing new. Studios always pick a handful of things to be their for-year consideration titles for the year.
For sure. Amazon Prime is $13 per month. Obviously, you're not just paying, in the case of Prime, you're not just paying for the streaming service. You're also paying for free shipping in most cases.
The 2-day shipping. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's a second component to that's which might account for it being slightly higher than some of the other services. In terms of their movie selection, you're getting a lot of. I was surprised at at how deep some of their genre catalog goes.
Yeah, it is deep. As I referenced a few minutes ago, Netflix used to have these surprisingly deep catalogs of like 70s and 80s low budget sort of drive-in fare, and now that is all on Amazon. You can go hundreds of pages just for horror. Or action on Amazon. Hundreds of pages deep. They have stuff from around the world. They have a good amount of Shaw Brothers films on
a lot
Amazon
of Kung Fu.
Actually. Yeah. If you are interested in, I use Amazon Prime a lot. Like, I think I watch movies on there more than almost any other platform. More than the other general platforms, I would say. I use a couple specific ones a lot, but Amazon I use the most because they classic films, quote unquote, not great.
No.
Only Criterion has a good selection of films made before the 70s. But, for example, Night of the Hunter is on Amazon.
Yeah.
I watched that last night. It's a very deep catalog.
That's right. It is, although there's not necessarily a lot of rhyme or reason to it.
No. It certainly writes deals.
Yeah. I mean, we'll talk a little bit, we'll talk about some platforms that are a little more curatorial. Mm-hmm. Amazon is largely about, we can just get huge quantities of this stuff. And here it is. You were talking earlier about Netflix's usability. I feel like Amazon's is kind of a mess in terms of finding
sure.
things, you know?
The more you use it, the better the recommendations get, is what I've noticed. My recommendations have gotten very good and specific, but I watch, like, for example, if you watch 4 70s mid-budget crime thrillers in a row, it's going to start showing you those.
Yeah.
So it does get better over time.
And I should mention that I looked into this, and some of the titles that are new on Prime in May are the Adam Sandler vehicle Jack and Jill.
Be sure to showcase them.
Yeah. Rocket Man is coming to Amazon in May, but then you're also getting some stuff like Don Siegel's Escape from Alcatraz, Dario Argento's Inferno, the Tarantino favorite, The Blood Splattered Bride, and the original Walking Tall. Those will all be there in May. In terms of originals, this month will also bring The Vast of Night. That's a new ultra low budget sci-fi movie that we both saw on the festival circuit. We'll be talking about that on the show in a few weeks, I think, because it's actually going to be available at the end of May. Yeah, I think in general, Amazon might be the quantity pick.
Yeah, I would say that if you believe that the 1970s were the pinnacle of cinematic history, the best decade in film, you need Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
Because that's what they have on there.
They also, there's also the sort of a la carte option as well, because I still, maybe I'm old fashioned in this way, I'm still completely comfortable, even as somebody who pays for a few different streaming services, I'm still completely comfortable renting something. Now,
I rent movies all the time.
We grew up in the video store era, so the idea of paying $3 or $4 to watch a movie is not a big deal. I will say that adds up if you're doing both that and paying for several streaming services.
Sure, of course, yeah, because back in the day, you were just paying for the rentals.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not the most cost-effective, honestly, to just rent, because, even 3 rentals and you're getting to the point where you're basically paying for a streaming service there.
Yeah,
so.
It's like $12 right there.
Exactly, yeah. But, the reality is that none of the streaming services offer very, very few of them offer instant access to brand new movies.
No, yeah, you still have to wait. The theatrical window is still a thing, although, COVID is shortening it. But the funny thing, you're talking about the prices adding up. When streaming first started, everyone was like, oh, cable's so expensive. This is great. It's $8 a month instead of $80 a month. But now if you subscribe to everything, it is easily the price of a cable package.
Oh, yeah. That's the direction we're going in for sure, is that all of these things are going to add up to being probably more than cable eventually, if you want the full scope of what cable offered you.
Right, exactly. And then a company will come along and offer to, we'll subscribe to all of them for you. We'll put them all in one place. And then cable companies will do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Let's move on to Hulu. Hulu at this point it's about $8 per month, and that's with commercials, if you're willing to sit through commercials.
The commercials will drive you insane.
Yeah, because it's the same one over and over and over again.
Yeah. I'm a little bit of a cheapskate. I have Hulu with commercials, and especially in the COVID era, I've started just screaming at the TV because every single commercial starts with, in these times, we know it's difficult out there. Buy a car. And you're just like, ah!
It would be nice to have a car right now, I'll say that. I don't have a car.
Yeah, go cruising.
I would like to be able to go for a drive. That would be nice.
It's working on you, Alex.
It is. So $8 is the basic plan with commercials. For $12, you can get it without commercials, so it's comparable to the other services, obviously.
Yeah, if it drives you too crazy, it might be worth the $4.
Yeah. Hulu is also low on classics. I think probably even more so than Amazon, and probably in the range of Netflix, honestly, where if something happened before the 1980s, you're not going to find a lot of it on Hulu. Just for a taste of what's going to be new on the platform this month, Batman Begins and Dark Knight, both of Christopher Nolan's first 2 Batman films, are both going to be available starting this month, starting today, I guess. The Graduate is coming to Hulu. I'm seeing the original Walking Tall, which again was also on Amazon, which raises the question that there probably is actually some overlap.
There's a lot of overlap. Every year on AV Club, I do the Halloween streaming guide, and so I'm like, that's how I found out how deep Amazon's catalog really was, because I literally went 150 pages deep in their horror just to see what they had. And there's a lot of overlap, particularly between Hulu and Amazon. Yeah.
Right. Goodfellas, A Life Less Ordinary, a couple other things coming there. One advantage that Hulu Hulu does have is that it's the official streaming platform of Neon.
Yeah, this is interesting. I feel like Hulu maybe feels a little bit left out with Amazon and Netflix, getting all these high-profile films, because just in the past month, they announced Portrait of a Lady on Fire was coming to the service, and then Parasite, two of the most high-profile films of last year. And of course, these aren't, like you said, to be clear, they have a deal with Neon. These aren't Hulu originals. There are some Hulu originals. They put out Minding the Gap, the documentary that we both liked from, was that 2018?
Yep, 2018. That's right.
Yeah. But they're Hulu originals. If you think Netflix originals are low profile, try a Hulu original.
Yeah. They have not really carved out that niche for themselves at this point.
Yeah, but I wonder if they're trying to get there with this Neon deal. In terms of catalog, I would actually put Hulu between Amazon Prime and Netflix. They have more just straight movies than Netflix. They're just, my main complaint about Hulu is for TV and movies, the usability is not great. When you first open the screen, it's just sort of a random selection of stuff that they think you might like. It's not your list. It's not keep watching. It's not anything like that. You have to go several tabs deep to find, for example, both of us are doing an X-Files rewatch right now, and the X-Files is on Hulu, and I have to go several pages deep just to go back to marathoning the X-Files. So that's my biggest complaint with Hulu. And in terms of movies, it's just like a scrolling list. There's no categorization or anything. It's very, very random. But if you're looking for a specific film, I've been surprised by the number of times you're like, oh, that's on Hulu? Oh, okay.
Oh, nice. So you will occasionally find what you're looking for on Hulu.
Yeah, like today I was looking for Grey Gardens. That's on Hulu. Who knew?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, Hulu is majority owned by Disney. I do think that particularly going forward is going to affect what you're going to see on Hulu, because I think that, I mean, obviously anything that's Disney is going to show up on Disney Plus.
Yeah, exactly. They have their own streaming service to deal with.
Correct. I do wonder though if and we're going to get to Disney Plus soon, I do wonder if Hulu will eventually become the place where you can see Fox stuff.
Yeah, and Disney Plus also, I believe they put a PG-13 cap on content on Disney Plus, so anything under the Disney umbrella that's R-rated, Hulu would be the natural home for it.
Right, that would make sense. I mean, we're not seeing a ton of that now, but if I want to watch the Alien films streaming, is Hulu going to become the home for those, maybe?
I wouldn't mind, because, with the Fox catalog being pulled from theatrical rep distribution because of Disney's policies, which is a whole thing you can look up. I think Matt Zoller Seitz wrote an article about it that was pretty good. If that's going to happen, then I would like them to be somewhere. And Hulu, if that's the spot, that's the spot.
For sure. Okay, so we mentioned Disney Plus. Let's talk about that platform as well. Disney is obviously right now, and probably in the grand scope of movie history, one of the largest providers of giant blockbuster entertainment ever. They are sort of the reigning champs right now. I mean, if you look at the amount of the box office that Disney claims year to year is obscene.
Incredible. That's what makes it so staggering that Netflix is valued higher at the moment.
I know, it's wild. But Disney Plus it's a fairly new platform. It's $7 per month. And what it offers essentially is large chunks of the Disney catalog. Disney obviously now includes more than just Disney. So you're getting the animated classics, but you're also getting Pixar. You're getting Marvel, all the Marvel movies, and you're getting Star Wars.
But the thing is, the Marvel movies, I can only imagine how complicated the deals for these rights are, because they pop up on other platforms too. Like, for example, like Epix has Thor. It's not the exclusive home of all the and a couple of Marvel movies are on Netflix too. I think they pulled all the Star Wars movies from Netflix, and it's just Disney Plus now. I think if you want to watch Star Wars movies, you have to use Disney Plus. But me being old and raised on the original films taped off HBO. They're the special editions. That's no good. It's no good. It's no good.
I mean, is there any platform that's going to give you, even if Disney Plus did not have the Star Wars films, even if they were available elsewhere, it would be the special editions. Lucas has basically assured that that's the only way you can officially watch them now. So you gotta count on those VHS tapes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this is like my regular corner on the podcast now. You gotta have the minute where Katie bitches about the special editions.
So obviously, I mean, Disney Plus is, I think you should probably go without saying that if you're a parent and it offers a lot of family fare, there's just a ton of not just Disney classics, but newer fare. They're adding new stuff all the time.
And like I mentioned, they cap the content at PG-13. So if you're a parent, you can just kind of hand them you don't have to watch as closely as, for example, them using Netflix. They could easily stumble upon something highly inappropriate, but on Disney Plus, it's geared towards families that way.
Right, exactly. Yeah, they're like making sure that your kids are not going to accidentally find an R-rated movie on there.
Yeah.
In terms of what's coming up this month, they're adding John Carter, they're adding Homeward Bound, they're adding George of the Jungle, and Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides. So some live action stuff is coming on there this month. It's not the most diverse collection of content. It's not like you're gonna. I mean, Disney itself as a producer of films over the decades has a deeper bench than some might think, but not all of that stuff is available.
Well, one of the deepest benches is, I'm a little old for this myself, but if you have a lot of nostalgia for Disney original movies of the 90s, they have all of them on there. And I know there are a lot of people who grew up on that stuff, and so you'll have 20-somethings perhaps subscribing to Disney Plus as well.
Totally. So I think that's kind of what Disney Plus offers. I mean, it's definitely not the service you're going to get if you're interested in like a deep dive into art house cinema. That's just not how we're going to get from Disney.
In terms of cinephile stuff, unless you have kids, I don't see, it's not really a cinephiles streaming service, I would say.
Right. For that, you could look to the Criterion Channel.
Yes, the Criterion Channel. In my opinion, this one is the best curated streaming platform. However, it has some usability issues that mitigate that. I'll get into that in a minute.
I would probably agree with you. It's $11 per month, and I think they have about 1,000 feature films on there available, which is less than some of the platforms. But again, they're offering a more curated experience. That's of course true to the spirit of Criterion, which the Criterion Collection over the years has always been discerning about what it lets in. I mean, we can quibble about individual entries, but the fact of the matter is they've Criterion, since back when they were doing Laserdisc, has always sort of marketed itself as we're an organization that's basically interested in preserving important cinema.
Right. Yeah. It's an indicator of quality. And they have expanded it over the years. You know, they started off with French New Wave and Ingmar Bergman and your really classic art house stuff. And they've expanded a little bit over the years. I mean, they have Herschel Gordon Lewis movies on there now. Yeah. So I think expanded their scope.
I mean, would you agree that Criterion is sort of the gold standard of home video physical media releases?
Yeah, the only other one on that level I would say is Arrow Video. Their releases are fabulous.
But Arrow doesn't quite have the clout that Criterion has necessarily.
They don't have as big of a catalog either.
Right. I mean, Criterion's to the point now where they're basically, they are now becoming, for some new art house fare, they are becoming the destination where those films will show up for a physical release. They even they're even releasing some Netflix films. Both Marriage Story and The Irishman are coming to the Criterion Collection. Well,
sure.
I imagine they will not be available, however, on the Criterion Channel.
No, I don't think they would be. And, you know, Netflix is chasing that kind of clout now, and so it is very much in their best interest to have a Criterion physical media release. And aren't they doing Portrait of a Lady on Fire too?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, they're going to do the physical release for that one too, and that's a Hulu title.
Yep.
Yeah.
But that brings up that brings up one of the issues here, which is that not everything in the Criterion Collection is on the channel.
Yes. Yes.
Because streaming rights and physical media rights are two different things, and some of these titles, I mean, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, as we said before, is on Hulu, and I would imagine it's going to remain there so long as Hulu has this deal with Neon.
Yeah, I would imagine. And, you know, I mean, with indie films, it's just all about trying to find as many different revenue streams as possible. You know, that's kind of why this, to go on a short tangent, this is kind of why virtual film festivals aren't really taking off, because streaming is sort of a last destination for films. You know, festivals pay pay fees to screen movies, and then they get a distribution deal and play in theaters, and then they go on streaming. And every one of those times, the movie makes a little bit of its budget back, right? And if you leapfrog over the other two and go straight to streaming, it's not possible for them to make their money back. So I think that's part of the reason why virtual festivals aren't just That's the reason why like Cannes isn't just, we'll do it online. It's more complicated than that.
For sure. So in terms of Criterion, I think I agree with you that pound for pound, like they have possibly they're the best curated. I think they also have, in terms of just looking at their selections, they probably have the best movies are probably available on Criterion.
Well,
on Criterion channel.
It is just the Criterion, just being under the Criterion label is a sign of quality. And I think they do take that pretty seriously.
Yeah.
The reason I say it's the best curated is because they seem to be plugged. This could be a chicken egg situation. Are people talking about it because it's on Criterion? Or is it on Criterion because people are talking about it? But either way, they seem to be pretty plugged into the sort of like online dialogue, the movies that people are talking about, the stuff that is on my watch list. It's happened to me several times this year already where something's on my watch list and I go, oh yeah, I should get around to seeing that. I fire up Criterion and there it is.
Well, I think you're touching on sort of what's one of the more remarkable things about Criterion is that they are both reflective of film culture in the sense that they go after films that are important and films that are artistically significant and historically significant, but they also help shape that conversation too by basically when they select something, they say this is important as well, and it puts it on the radar of a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I've always kind of thought of Criterion as a film education in and of itself. I mean, if you watch all these movies, I think you're going to learn a lot about global cinema. So I think the Criterion Channel offers, at least an abbreviated version of that. Again, not everything that's available in the collection is available to stream, and I think that changes a little bit month to month as with any streaming service.
Oh sure, but if there's one major downside to Criterion, some of these ones that we're talking about that have the big deep catalogs, it can be tough to browse, but if you're searching, it's great. You know?
For sure.
Like if you're, reading books about movies, finding about movies different ways besides browsing the platforms, Criterion is actually pretty difficult for that. For example, I was trying to see what Japanese films were on Criterion, and back when it was Filmstruck, they used to have more general browsing categories, video store type categories like that, but they don't have that anymore on Criterion Channel, and you just have to go to search and type in Japan, and then everything that they have will come up in an order that doesn't make a lot of sense. And also all of the bonus interviews will pop up. And so it can be difficult. Like say, for example, you're like, I want to watch a movie from the 1940s tonight. Good luck on Criterion.
Yeah, finding it that way anyway, yeah, for sure. For listeners who don't know, Filmstruck was a short-lived and much beloved streaming service that sort of predated the Criterion Channel.
Yeah,
had a lot of the same films. They had a direct relationship with Criterion. When Filmstruck went under, Criterion sort of picked up the baton and said, we're gonna create something kind of similar.
Yeah, if they would replicate that sort of structure where you could look by artist, because they have these collections on Criterion Channel, where it'll be like directed by, for example, Jane Campion, and they'll have all her movies in there. But if that doesn't show up on the first page and you want to watch a Jane Campion movie, you're going to have a little bit of an issue. So I wish they would bring back the more general browsing categories on Criterion, and then it would be the best streaming service, in my opinion.
Totally. I think that it is the best streaming service, but again, I think that does actually depend on what you're looking for, so it's not as cut and dry as just like, this is the best, this is the worst, that sort of thing.
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. I'm just saying it would be heads and shoulders above everybody else if the video. I keep referring to them as video store categories because I'm an ex-video store clerk. But, like in the video store, you organize it by comedy, drama, sci-fi, etc. And streaming services, they don't all do that. The only one that does that right now is Shudder.
Yeah.
And it's just something that I appreciate. It's a way of looking for something to watch that I'm very used to from being a video store clerk for 10 years.
Totally. So it's interesting that you mentioned that because I want to talk about the next platform here, and that's Mubi. Now, Mubi is the same price as Criterion. It's $11 per month. And I feel like if a lot of these services are they're kind of like family video in the sense that they just offer these large kind of random assortment of titles. They're like virtual video stores where you can sort of find just a grab bag of things.
Yeah.
Mubi is more like if somebody took the recommended shelf at your favorite video store, your favorite local sort of hard to find video store, and all it offered was that recommended shelf.
Yeah.
So Mubi's deal is that it offers at any time 30 titles, just 30 titles, but it's highly curated. The idea is that everything is there. Everything there is there on a temporary basis. It's a rotating library, almost like an actual art house theater in some respects. And the 30 titles change basically. And if you have a Mubi account and you log in, you basically will get notification on everything that's in there, how much longer it's on there.
That's nice. That's really nice. It is nice.
It's really convenient. So they're even organized by how much longer they're available, so there'll be ones that are like, you have 1 more day to watch this, you have 5 more days to watch this, etc. And it's constantly changing. But Mubi is probably the most curated of the streaming services, I think, in the sense that everything on there is on there for a reason, and it's all art house fare. Almost exclusively, I would say, and all of them were chosen because the people who run the site or who run the service think that it's an important film. So in the same sense that the Criterion Channel can serve as an education in film, Mubi feels like a very targeted education. It's like, this is what we're interested in showing.
Well, I think that something that's happening right now with the COVID epidemic is some art house theaters are opening virtual cinemas.
Yeah.
And the experience of that, if you've used one of those and you really like it, then you should try Mubi, because it's a lot like, it's similar to that, you know?
Yeah. It's like, these are the titles. It's 30 titles. Take a look. I mean, the only one for whom Mubi I could not see being remotely useful is somebody who has seen all of the movies that they're showing, and because of the degree to which the programmers at Mubi, I'm going to call them programmers, I guess, the degree to which they are reaching into the depths of cinema and finding unusual or interesting things.
It's pretty unlikely.
It's pretty unlikely, honestly, that you're going to have seen everything that they're showing, so to speak. So in terms of what's going to be on Mubi in May, Beanpole, the Russian film that came out earlier this year, is getting its exclusive streaming run on Mubi.
Good film.
Good film, agreed. I saw that at Cannes and liked it quite a bit. Mm-hmm. There are some early German classics are going to be available on there this month. Metropolis, Nosferatu, The Blue Angel, and Revette's Out One, sort of one of the big sort of long cinema holy grails, so to speak. Is on there. They're going to be showing that in parts. So if you've been waiting, like I have, to watch that thing, a Mubi membership might be up your alley.
Yeah, I was going to say, I haven't seen that one. Please don't take my film critic card away.
No, I haven't watched it either, to be honest. And I love Revette, but it's very long.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
It's just a matter of trying to work it in.
Yeah. I've seen part of Satan Tang.
Oh, you should definitely finish that. That is that is chef's kiss.
Yeah.
Originally on this list I had Fandor as well, but Fandor is a dead platform, unfortunately. As far as I know, you can actually still go to the website, and I think what happens is when you try to sign up, your credit card is just rejected.
Oh.
They laid everybody off a couple years ago. But the site is still active, but I don't think you can
still go on the website. That's strange.
It is strange. Fandor was even more, I think, eclectic in some ways than Mubi. They were very much like, Fandor's whole thing was, we are giving you stuff on the far outskirts. This is it's all independent film, a lot of foreign film, and a lot of really, really obscure stuff. So that was great for those who even something like Mubi would be. I mean, I don't think you'd see anything like Metropolis on Fandor.
That would be too mainstream for them.
Exactly, yeah. Totally. The other thing, Mubi does offer rentals as well, I should say that. So like Amazon, you can supplement your monthly watch with stuff that's not in that official group of 30 that you can just rent for a few bucks, that sort of thing.
True video store experience.
Exactly. So let's talk next about Shudder.
Yeah, now for something completely different.
Indeed. Shudder is $6 per month. It's one of the cheaper of the services. Mm-hmm. And Shudder is, of all of the streaming services out there, the one that I think is the most genre targeted.
Yeah. There are a few other genre streaming services, but none of them have the platform of Shudder. They don't work as well. They're not as well designed. They don't have the curation of Shudder. And honestly, they don't have the acquisition budget of Shudder, which is part of AMC. So they can buy some of their... You have to draw a line between Shudder exclusives and originals. I'll get more into this in a minute. But some of their exclusives, they buy some good stuff off the festival circuit.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, their programming is kind of... I don't know if programming is the right word. Their selections are sort of... it's a mix of horror classics. Mm-hmm. You can see stuff like Night of the Living Dead and Halloween on there.
Or even you can watch The Old Dark House on there. They have some older stuff too.
Right. So like these sort of milestones of the genre. There's also new stuff that's been purchased directly off of the festival circuit, and there's a whole lot of Z-grade schlock as well.
I think that's just kind of the nature of the horror genre, isn't it? You know
Yeah, for
I
sure.
mean?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, did I like Tigers Are Not Afraid? Yes. Do I want to watch Demon Wind? Also, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's the service that if you are a voracious consumer of horror, it's the one for you. I mean, it's a good catalog.
Yeah, like I watch pretty much every new horror movie that comes out, and in their the new tab on Shudder, there's always a couple things I haven't seen on there. So one thing, like I mentioned earlier, they have exclusives and originals, and I'm not sure exactly what the line is. I assume it's some sort of, rights deal, different prices, stuff like that. But a Shudder exclusive, there is some good stuff like Phantasm, the original Phantasm, the remastered 4K that Bad Robot did. That's exclusive on Shudder. You have to get Shudder if you want to watch Phantasm. And One Cut of the Dead, Bliss, Tigers Are Not Afraid, like I mentioned, movies that I talk about all the time, all Shudder exclusives. But the Shudder originals, I think maybe they've stepped up their acquisition recently and they're just buying more. And so more schlock is kind of coming up on the original side. And I have mixed feelings about it because some people don't really like the more festival elevated, so to speak, horror. Some people don't like that. They like schlock, and both can sit side by side.
I think what it comes down to probably is that if Shudder could get the exclusive rights to Midsummer or to The Lighthouse or something,
they would.
They absolutely would. But those films have a cachet sort of outside of, beyond strictly horror audiences. So they're not, that's not something they're going to be able to broker. That's not a deal they're going to be able to broker necessarily. So in terms of the films that they are sort of snatching up and making exclusives, it's stuff that has less cachet, one might say. Maybe
less crossover, perhaps.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. In terms of what's going to be new on Shudder in May, I'm just looking here at some of the classics. You can see there will be new. There are a few new like Shudder exclusives, as you said. But in terms of classics, the original Hellraiser, Goodnight Mommy. I guess that's not a classic, but that's sort of one of the more significant horror films of the last 10 years, maybe.
It's a fucked up movie.
This is definitely a fucked up movie. And I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Oh, that's such a fun movie. I haven't seen that since it came out. I might have to watch it again.
It is a fun movie.
But in terms of usability, Shudder has like one big pro and one big con, in my opinion. The big pro is that they have a lot of different tabs you can page through, but they're arranged in a better order than on Hulu. Like the first, when you open the app, here's the con, this thing Shudder TV pops up, which is like a constant stream of films that I think is free. You can just watch it without subscribing to Shudder. And that's fine, but if your Wi-Fi isn't blazing fast, it can take a minute for that to come up, and so it gets frustrating waiting for that to come up and then dismiss it and then go to the front page of Shudder. So that's kind of frustrating, but once you get into the browsing area, I really like the way it's set up. The first page is all curated collections, and then the next tab after that is the browse feature that I was talking about, where they have it arranged by like, here's ghost movies, here's Asian horror movies, here's horror movies from the 80s, just different types of horror movies that someone might want to watch are all there. And then the curated selections are even more specific than that. And that's something that I enjoy about Shudder.
Well, that's useful. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so let's talk about Apple TV Plus. That's a very new platform now. Obviously, it's Apple's streaming platform. It's among the cheapest. It's only $5 per month. But the catch with Apple TV Plus is that they have a very small library. At this point, all they're offering is originals.
Yeah,
so
I get it. I bought an Apple TV a few months ago to watch screeners on because the device, the Apple TV, has the AirPlay function, which is great. Again, your Wi-Fi has to be good, but if your Wi-Fi is good, you can just cast from your computer onto the Apple TV. No wires or anything. Oh,
that's very convenient.
Yeah, it's really convenient. But the device comes with a subscription to Apple TV Plus. I'm not going to lie to you, Alex. I've never watched it. There's really nothing on there to watch. I don't know if I would really recommend even subscribing to it if you don't have an Apple TV and it doesn't come with, just because there's not a whole lot on there yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very small library at this point. It's mostly, I mean, there's some original TV content, and there are a few movies. They have The Banker, Hala from earlier this year. Also, Beastie Boys Story is a new addition.
Yeah,
Spike Jonze's. Yep, that came out last week. That's Spike Jonze's documentary about the Beastie Boys. So there are a few films, but not many. I imagine this service will grow.
I assume, yeah. This is another area where Apple seems to be putting a lot of its efforts into TV and series.
Yeah.
Like in the build up to the launch of Apple TV Plus, most of the, the press releases hitting our inboxes were about series rather than original films.
Right. So after that, I think we should just kind of look at some of the effectively free streaming services.
Yeah, these will have ads, a couple of those
too. Right.
So these will have ads, and they'll be the repetitive ads that you get on Hulu where you have the progressive commercial memorizing. You want to pull your hair out, but, if you want to watch a movie, and there's no other way to watch it.
Yep. One of them is Tubi TV. And that has, I would say the advantage of it is that it does have a lot of movies.
A lot. If you're looking for something specific and you do a search, Tubi will come up quite a bit. Like last week I watched a movie on Tubi, Pulse, Cairo, the original Japanese J-horror movie from the early 2000s. Yeah, very creepy movie.
Oh yeah, I love that film. It's great.
Super creepy. It's on Tubi.
Yeah, I mean, they have reportedly they have like over 5,000 movies on there, which is quite a lot. It is even more so than some of the other services, though. It really does feel like a random assortment of films. Just anything they can get their hands on.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of the opposite of curated in that respect.
Yeah, like we were talking about Mubi being a video store recommendation shelf. Tubi is the big bin of old DVDs that they're selling off.
That's true. Yeah, Tubi TV is like if you are at a Meijer or something, and there's a bin up front of DVDs that are just like, there's just like a pile of random DVDs.
Yeah, I mean, the gas station rack of
the DVDs, gas station rack. That's right. Yeah. You're gonna find some good stuff, but you're also gonna find a lot of not great stuff.
If you're not looking for anything specific, something interesting will pop up. But
yeah, I mean, it's the budget choice. I mean, and you are getting, in terms of quantity for your money, it's free. And you get a lot. It's not for anyone who is looking for much in particular, although you might find that because of the size of their selections.
Well, I would say it kind of is both extremes. If you go in completely open-minded, like, I don't know, I just want to watch a movie, and you just click around a little bit, you'll find something. And if, say, you're doing the kind of thing that I do, and I know you do too, Alex, and a lot of cinephiles do, is you make a list. Like, now we're starting to look at films for when I don't think this is a huge spoiler or anything, we're going to do Best Films of 2000 list like we do every year. And so you start looking at stuff months early for that, and I'm finding some of this stuff on Tubi. Because I have a list that I'm working off of. Yep. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. So it is useful in that respect. And although it's free. So.
I gotta say the transfers aren't always great.
Yeah, and the commercials that's a real bummer. I mean, we grew up at a time and sort of used to seeing movies on TV, but we're kind of moving out of that age.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody's nostalgic for getting commercial breaks in their movies.
I don't think so. Because sometimes it'll be in the middle of a scene and you're like, okay.
Yep. The other major free service is Crackle.
Yeah.
Crackle's been around a little bit longer. It's actually been around for a few years.
I have to admit, I've never fired up Crackle. I've had it on several devices, and I've never actually fired it up. There's another one called Vudu that's owned by Walmart.
Yeah.
That is sort of a poor man's Amazon Prime in some ways. That it's got rentals on it, and they've also got a lot of free movies on there. So, like, with these kind of apps, what I do, and I feel like it's pretty effective, is you install all the free ones, right? Just install them. They're free. Why not? And then use the search function on your device, and then it'll show you where they are.
Totally. Yep.
That's what I do.
Voodoo I always kind of thought of as more of a rental service. I guess they do have free titles, though.
It's relatively recent, but they have kind of a lot now. Like House of Flying Daggers was free on there.
Oh, nice. Crackle, its one distinguishing characteristic, I think, is that a lot of Sony titles pop up there because Crackle is actually owned by Sony. And it's a very random assortment of films. I mean,
this list you have here is very random.
No, I mean, yeah, so, I mean, like, I picked some of the more interesting films that are available. You can get Lars von Trier's Melancholia on there, the VHS films, David Gordon Green's Prince Avalanche, Starship Troopers. Mm-hmm. Those are on there. There's also a lot of really terrible looking movies that nobody's ever heard of, and they're all on there as well. So if that's your cup of tea.
Yeah, if you're, say you're reading a book about a genre of film, and, say you're reading a book about film neo-noirs of the 1970s or something like that, put it on your device and give it a search. They might have what you're looking for.
Yeah, I think that's good advice to just download some of the ones that are free because who knows? They might have what you're looking for someday, and they're there. Because I mean, that's sort of our guide at this point of the streaming services. There are more, obviously. There's more every day, I think, but those are the major ones, I think. And I think what it comes down to is just what you're looking for. And I hope we gave you some sort of sense of what these different services provide and what they offer. Some people probably purchase all of them. I have a few of them myself.
Yeah, I don't have all of them, but I have a few of them. And I think password sharing is honestly just kind of a part of life in our current world, because like we were saying, it'd be the price of a cable package if you didn't.
Pretty much. Yeah, I don't think that's going anywhere.
Perhaps that makes me a scofflaw, but I don't see the harm in people using a password.
Totally. So I think they all have their advantages and disadvantages. I think pound for pound, probably if you were just going to get one. Well, again, I think it depends on what you're looking for.
Right, exactly.
I think I admire the Criterion Channel the most of the available options, but again, I don't always want to watch something that's, one might say, Criterion worthy. There are times when I want to watch something that's a little bit more disreputable, so.
I think if you put together one of the bigger services and one of the more specialized services, with two services, I think you can probably tailor a pretty satisfying movie streaming experience. And then, like I said, just add all the free ones at the end and then search for stuff.
And the option of rentals maybe too in there too. If there's something you really want to see, you can rent it as well.
Yeah, for sure. I love how when streaming first started, digital rentals weren't nearly as plentiful as they are now. And now most movies are available, at least for digital rental. And I enjoy that quite a bit.
Yeah.
10 years as a video store clerk here, there's certain things that you will never go away from me. Okay, everybody, that's all we've got for you this week. And when you're not enjoying your favorite streaming service, please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to Film Club wherever you get your podcasts.
And this week's episode of Film Club was hosted by me, Alex Dowd, and by Katie Rife. It was produced and edited by Carl Blumberg. Our sound mixer and finishing editor is Seth Hafer, and our motion graphics designer is Julie Mullins. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode on summer blockbuster season. Thanks for listening.
Thanks. See you next time.